You said you don't agree that the Academy should be saved. You said, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember your exact language, that the whole thing needs to burn down. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I'm not going to say who you are in public. There are a lot of people I know for whom it would be a bad look to have said that. But I do want to tell you what I mean when I say we should save the Academy. To start off, let me quickly answer a few questions about what I mean by the Academy. First, a few people have asked me why I say the Academy and not academia. One person asked me if it's a Canadian thing. And, yeah. Secondly, a few people have accused me in quite a lot of detail of hypocrisy for saying that I don't think the Academy is one homogenous thing that has a shared common agenda, and for addressing the Academy in the singular as an entity. We're going to handle this one by way of analogy. You're familiar with the American healthcare system, yeah? I'm sure you've encountered it a few times in your life, and I'm sure if you have ever encountered it, you're familiar with its many interesting properties. And we can reasonably talk about parts of the American healthcare system. There are people, for example, clinicians and hospital administrators, places like hospitals and clinics, and organizations like emergency services and insurance companies. We can even be fuzzy about the borders. Is the medicine aisle at the grocery store part of the American healthcare system? Are chiropractors, homeopaths, meth dealers? And I think we should be able to agree that it's incorrect to say that these entities are all aligned with each other. Clinicians and insurance companies, for example, are often in conflict over the appropriate amount and type of care to offer patients. But we can still call this whole thing the American healthcare system. It would be ridiculous to say there isn't an American healthcare system. It would be like saying there aren't cars. There are just engines and wheels and metal and furniture. Like, the gas tank and the seats are both part of a car, but it would be ridiculous to call a gas leak an upholstery issue. Alright, we're 2 metaphors deep now, so let's pull back and get our bearings. We're talking about the Academy. The Academy is a conceptual structure, like the American healthcare system. It doesn't correspond to any particular institution, but it is comprised of many institutions and individuals. And there is nothing about the institutions or individuals that comprise the Academy that requires that they be in alignment with each other. They are often only just barely aligned enough to keep the relationship from totally collapsing. Diving back into the metaphor now, the healthcare system is made of a bunch of competing parts, and when you talk about the system as a whole, it can be unclear which parts you're talking about. Like, if you said you want to destroy the American healthcare system, and I said I want to save it, we could totally mean the same thing. Setting up a single-payer system that eliminates the need for, and therefore the existence of, the private health insurance companies. You might think of those companies as being so essential to the system that removing them would fundamentally kill the American healthcare system and create something new in its place, whereas I think of them as an extraneous parasite that needs to be burnt off to help the system flourish. God damn it, I'm sinking into another metaphor again. Or we could mean completely different things. You might be coming from like a Cold War down with the West thing where all you want is to sow chaos and instability in America, so you just want the hospitals to shut down. And I could be like a radical anti-vaxxer alternative medicine quack trying to save Americans from the scourge of medicine that works. The point is, saying the Academy needs to be destroyed or the Academy needs to be saved doesn't really carry that much information. What it does carry is a rhetorical alignment. Destroy the Academy is a more radical, punk, leftist, anti-establishment vibe. Save the Academy is a more liberal, reformist, humanistic energy. This is also pretty much how I feel about the terms reform and revolution. They don't articulate a distinction in strategic approach. They articulate a distinction in what kind of music you want people to think you like. The answer that I've settled on to the question, is the Academy worth saving or isn't it, is there are parts that I would like to see survive the process of killing the parts that need to die. And I've settled on the language of saving rather than destroying to describe that because I want to do this work and because I want to do it outside the academic system. I won't have an institution at my back. Not to pay my salary, not to fund travel or conference attendance, not to provide health insurance. So I need to appeal to people with money. Are you worried about the future of human knowledge? Do you think the Academy needs to make big changes to survive the coming century? Do you wake up from nightmares about exams and want the institution to stop imparting that particular trauma onto young people? Go to patreon.com/txwatson to support integrity, compassion, and truth in the Academy. That's patreon.com/txwatson. Act now. Okay, but for real, there's no clear and stable difference in meaning between save the abstraction and destroy the abstraction, but the choice does have consequences. It affects what kind of audience you're attracting. And It's not just bald mercenary pragmatism affecting my choice of rhetoric. I also know which radicals I stand to attract by doing this work as a media personality on the internet. And while I am more than happy to work with many leftists, I am not the least bit interested in building a core audience out of the internet leftism fandom. I do not want to be making easy listening background audios for people using YouTube to reassure themselves that they're anti-capitalist. Alright, now that I've alienated both halves of my audience by treating one of them like living pocketbooks and calling the other ones fake leftists, I can comfortably move on to what the hell I actually want to save. And this ain't going to be a complete answer. Like, half the point of these videos is that I'm doing this shit while it's incomplete, but it is the part I've been thinking about since you and I last talked. I hate rhetorical questions, so hopefully this line doesn't survive the edit, but what does it mean to say we know something as a species? Damn it. Like, when we say we know what Shakespeare's dad did for a living, or we know how to put a man on the moon, the easy answer is that it's written down somewhere, but that's actually definitely not it. There are tons of things we don't know that we may someday discover because it's written down somewhere, but nobody's read it for the last 500 years, or nobody who's read it has understood it. It doesn't count as knowledge we have if no one knows it. Even that's not really enough, though. The person who knows needs to be willing to share. Like, there's tons of shit written down in notebooks in locked drawers in my apartment that I definitely have read and that I definitely understand, but that are not available for someone else to cross-reference with the things that they know to build a more complete picture of anything. That's not human knowledge, that's mine. So somebody's got to know and be willing to say. But even that's not enough, because there are definitely people who absolutely know lots of really interesting shit and would love to talk to somebody about it, but they never have occasion to talk to anybody who wants to know it. Just wanting to put something into humanity's knowledge base doesn't mean it's already there. If you want to know something, there are places where you can find a directory and look somebody up who knows that thing next to a tag that says they know that thing. And in the entry for that person, you'll find their email address. And that person is paid in part to be reachable by that email address. And if you shut those places down, and that person goes off and gets a job at a defense contractor or a Starbucks, we don't know that thing anymore. For a lot of the things that we know right now as a species, that person still exists, they still know, but once you lose the institution, you lose the institutional knowledge. And that's not easy to get back. It takes years to train a new person within the existing infrastructure to catch them up on the state of a field. It would take lifetimes to get there on your own with nothing but the books and papers to read. One of the jobs of a professor is to be a custodian of human knowledge, and every time an institution is lost with its faculty, every time someone's pushed out of the field for lack of opportunity, human knowledge is diminished, damaged, often lost. This is one of the reasons, by the way, why it's fine for some professors to spend their whole career noodling away at dead ends or silly bullshit, because you don't have to be succeeding in the creation of new knowledge to be an effective custodian of existing knowledge. The other big one is that some of those weirdos doing work no one cares about is going to wind up changing the world, and there's no way to tell in advance which ones are those guys and which ones are just wrong. And professor isn't the only job that fulfills or can fulfill this role. Librarians, for example, play a huge part in turning individual knowledge and documents into collective human knowledge. But I don't really see a scenario playing out where the universities are being massively defunded at the same time that public libraries are receiving massive infrastructural investment. This definitely won't be the last video where I talk about what parts of the academy I think need protecting and what parts should get the torches and pitchforks. Not to go too far off the rails, but the journal system is a parasite invented in the 1950s to siphon money out of the US government on the basis of Cold War paranoia through the academy, and if we don't kill it soon, it's going to kill us. But whatever we lose in human knowledge as a result of the loss of funding and support for the academy, we shouldn't expect to get back in our lifetimes. I think that's a good reason to try and fix things now, keeping existing institutions alive while we build better ones and change the ones that we have, rather than tearing it all down and starting from scratch. You're about to see my Patreon supporters start scrolling by over here, which does mean we're about at the end of the video, but to get you to stick around, I'm going to tell you the beginning of a joke that I'm only going to finish at the very end. What's orange and sounds like a parrot? I was being glib earlier, but I do need financial support to make this career viable. It's me and Cecilia here, and we both have day jobs right now, but in my case that is distinctly finite, and I am gonna need health insurance. More urgently, the university doesn't pay me in July and August, so I've got a period of 8 weeks coming up where my Patreon is my only income. So if you've been thinking about backing me, now is a great time to make a bigger difference. And you can follow the Patreon for free to keep up with the stuff that I'm doing. Also, if you hit the like button, but then you decide later that you actually didn't like this video, you can come back and unclick it. It's totally reversible, so there's no risk. Same goes for the subscribe button. And in fact, I'm running a special deal for all of my audience right now. If you subscribe today, I absolve you of all guilt for later unsubscribing if you decide that's what you need to do. Thanks for watching. And, a carrot.